They told us the aurora was just light, particles, magnetism, and solar wind. But when it began to whisper our names, we realized it wasn't light at all. It was something listening back. It was the kind of cold that hums in your bones. Station Vega sat on a plateau of white silence, so remote that when the wind stopped, you could hear your own pulse echo off the ice. 6 of us were stationed there, a collection of scientists, technicians, and ghosts of our own making. Officially, we were studying high-altitude electromagnetic interference. Unofficially, we were keeping ourselves sane with instant coffee and bad jokes. I kept a journal, not because I thought anything worth writing would happen, 'cause the darkness did strange things to your thoughts. The sun hadn't risen in 43 days. We lived by artificial light and the electric hum of the generator. Outside, the sky glowed faintly green every few nights. The aurora borealis, our only company. Then the voices began. It was February 9th, around 10:30 p.m. I was running maintenance checks when our radios came alive all at once. Static, then clarity. Dr. Keene, it said. My name. Crisp, calm, too human. Everyone froze. We stared at each other, waiting for someone to admit they'd keyed the mic. No one had. Keene, it said again, softer now. This shouldn't be here. That night, no one slept. We argued theories. Radio overlap, interference from military transmissions, even a prank from the Russians. But then the next night, the voice returned, this time saying everyone's names, not over the radio. Through the walls, through the wind. Ray's, our comms tech, swore he heard his dead sister's voice calling him outside. He almost opened the door, barefoot, before I stopped him. His eyes were glassy, like he wasn't really there. Over the following nights, the phenomenon grew worse. Every time the aurora flared, our electronics would fail. Lights flickering, data corrupting, hard drives erasing themselves. But the whispering, that never failed. It grew clearer, more specific. It spoke in memories, private ones, things none of us had ever said aloud. Dr. Song, our meteorologist, began obsessively staring at the sky. She swore the aurora was forming shapes, human silhouettes writhing in the light, reaching down like hands pressed against a veil. She whispered one morning over breakfast, trying to get out. By mid-February, our nerves were shredded. 2 people refused to leave their bunks. Another 11 spent hours playing old recordings backward, convinced there were messages embedded in the static. One night I found him crying in the lab, clutching his headphones. It's my father, he whispered. He said he forgives me. The next morning he was gone. No footprints, no open doors. Just his parka folded neatly by the exit, facing north toward the lights. We tried to call for help, but the radio tower only spat static, until we heard Levin's voice on the line. Not panicked. Calm. It's beautiful out here, he said. You just have to listen, and silence. Dr. Song disappeared next. She left a note that said only, they're not in the sky. They're in the air. By the time we realized what she meant, it was too late. The aurora had started moving closer. It no longer hung above the clouds. It coiled along the snow like a serpent of light. When it touched metal, the whole station shivered, as if the walls themselves were alive. Inside, the temperature dropped to 40. The generator died. We lit candles and huddled together, the sky pulsing green through the windows like veins glowing beneath skin. At 2:17 a.m., the final transmission from Station Vega was recorded. I don't remember speaking, but the tape doesn't lie. You can hear me saying, they're in the frequencies. The light carries them. Then over the static, a woman's voice whispers, thank you for opening the door. They found the station 6 months later empty. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just a single note burned into the wall. The edges fused like glass. It read, the lights are not above you. They're around you. Sometimes during magnetic storms, pilots report interference over the Arctic Circle. Their radios crackle. Their names whisper softly through the static. And if you listen long enough, you can hear a second voice. A chorus. Faint but growing. Singing in harmony with the wind. It's us. We never left. They called it a ghost town, but Portlock wasn't abandoned. The people left because something made them leave, something that never left at all. Portlock, Alaska, 1949. A fishing town at the edge of the Kenai Peninsula, swallowed by mountains and mist. The people there were hardy folk, trappers, whalers, and miners. But one autumn, they packed up and fled, leaving behind steaming pots, tools mid-use, even a church service half-finished. They never said why. 70 years later, I went there to find out. We were a documentary crew, 6 of us. Our producer, Jeff, wanted another unsolved mystery piece for streaming, something cheap but atmospheric. Portlock was perfect. Isolated, untouched, dripping with folklore. Locals warned us not to go. They spoke of the Nantinak, a monstrous spirit said to roam the forest, half man, half beast, who tore men apart when they disrespected the land. We docked beside what was left of the old pier, just splinters and rust. The air smelled of salt and rot. The silence was absolute except for the waves slapping against the rocks. That first night, nothing happened. We set up camp near the ruins of the cannery and drank whiskey by the fire. The only sound was the distant crash of water. But around midnight, Eli, our local guide, froze. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. From the woods came a deep, rhythmic thud, like footsteps but too heavy, then a dragging noise. What? Sloped. We didn't find any tracks the next morning, but the moss near camp was crushed, as if something large had crawled past. Jenna, our audio tech, checked her recorder, and there it was. The sound followed by a faint whisper. A single word. A dig. We laughed it off. Stress, pareidolia, bad acoustics. But the next night, the thudding came back, closer. This time, something brushed against my tent. Heavy. Breathing. I heard a low moan, not quite human, vibrating through the ground. By dawn, we wanted to leave. The boat was gone. Eli swore he'd tied it down. The rope wasn't cut. It was shredded like chewed fiber. We were trapped. That day, we searched for the old mine. The locals had said it was sealed decades ago after several miners vanished. It wasn't hard to find, a black wound in the hillside, half buried under moss and stone. The entrance smelled like decay. Inside, the air shimmered with dampness. Our lights flickered. The walls were slick with something thick. Not water, not mud. And then we saw it. A mark carved into the rock, repeated over and over. A circle with 3 claw lines through it, freshly scratched. When we found the bones, I thought they were animal, but the skulls were human, dozens of them, broken, cracked open. Something had eaten them. Then came the sound. Not from ahead, but behind. A low gurgling growl, like the sea breathing. Our lights shook. Something massive moved in the dark. It came on all fours, pale and hairless, with arms too long, joints bending backward. Its face was human-shaped but stretched like skin pulled too tight over bone. And its eyes, black, wet, bottomless, reflected our lights like mirrors. We ran. Outside, the fog had thickened to white blindness. Eli screamed, and when I turned, he was gone. Just gone. The forest swallowed the sound. We found the shoreline by instinct, the ocean roaring behind the mist. The water was boiling, literally churning like something enormous moved beneath. We saw the pier heave, crack, and sink. Then a shape rose beneath the surf. Tall, wide, impossible. The same black eyes staring up through the foam. We didn't stop running until the fog broke and we reached a Coast Guard station miles away. They said we'd been missing for 3 days. When they went back for our equipment, everything was gone. The camp, the tents, the mine, even the cannery. All that remained were tracks in the sand, human-sized but distorted, dragging as if something had crawled rather than walked. I kept one of the audio files. I shouldn't have. Every few months I play it, just to remind myself it was real. At first it's just static, then the voice. "E-dig," it whispers. Then, after a pause, "You brought it back." Sometimes when I dream, I can still hear the thudding. Slow, wet, growing louder. And when I wake, my feet are covered in sand. They say Portlock is haunted. They're wrong. It's not haunted. It's alive, and it remembers every name.